I think we can go live.
I just did as you were talking. Isn't it beautiful?
Hi,
So
everyone.
seamless.
Welcome to our live studio audience. I guess it's not a studio audience. Um, Welcome to our virtual audience. Welcome, welcome, everyone. Glad to be with you for this August Shabbat. Wow, I can't believe we've been at this since March, and now it's August. So settle in. We're going to start with just the opportunity to take some deep breaths and um, welcome in Shabbat with a little bit of a wordless melody. Just like you might do if you were starting a yoga class, just start in by noticing your breath, noticing how you're feeling, becoming present in the space with yourself, with one another, with Shabbat, with this amazing tradition that's been handed down to us that reminds us we have to take breaks. We have to check in and ground down and come into a different kind of presence sometimes, once a week. You know, this really is a sacred space that we're constructing here whenever we come together, and it's available to us no matter what our constrictions are, our restrictions. Being here virtually ever since March 13th, every Friday night and Shabbat morning, a sense of sacred community is always available to us. And I'm so grateful that we're able to make that happen. So as we breathe in Shabbat, let's really get in touch with that energy that binds us to each other. It's different from the energy we feel when we're together in our building, but it is nonetheless strong and sacred energy. This evening, I'm going to ask you just to make that space for that neshama, yetera, that extra soul, that spaciousness, that maybe it's sadness, maybe it's joy, maybe it's any number of emotions or a blend of them all that you need to make space for this Shabbat within yourself. We make that extra bit of space, and we're going to start with the wordless melody of Shalom Aleichem, where we really call upon the messengers of peace. I'd like to imagine that those are the angels that can help us create that space within ourselves that we need and that we welcome each Shabbat. So sing with me. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai. Yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai. Ya dai dai dai, ya dai, ya dai dai. So tonight we have Rabbi Schaefer here with us, who will lead us in candlelighting, and then Josh Cohen, our music educator, will lead us in a faster version of Shalom Aleichem. If you're following along with us in the prayer book, Josh has pasted it into the chat on Zoom, or you can find the link to it on our website if you're not with us on Zoom. Or if you're following along in the hard copy, we are on page 2 for candlelighting blessings.
If you have your candles with you at home, I invite you to bring them out and help transform the space we're in to a holy space. I know I sit in the same chair in the same room all week, doing all sorts of things from the mundane to the holy. And tonight we help transform that space that we inhabit for so long into a holy space by lighting these candles together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. So Josh, if you could help us welcome the angels of Shabbat with a little bit of a rock and Shalom Aleichem. We're on page 24 to welcome those angels of peace.
I'd love to. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Asharet, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Malachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Asharet, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Malachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Asharet, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Borechem l'shalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Amalachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bachuni l'shalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Amalachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeichem l'shalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch.
Thank you, Josh. Josh is also going to lead us in a really wonderful version of Psalm 96, the words of which can be found on page 13. We are going to sing the words Ya'alo Sadai V'chol Asher Bo, Az Yirananu Kol Atze Ya'ar. So we are going to sing out about joy, imagining even the trees are singing out with joy and wonder. So we're on page 13 in the second half of the page, and this version was written by Nava Tehillah, the group from Jerusalem, that we hope to have hosting them in our sanctuary someday. They were supposed to be with us this spring, but we will make it happen, Im Yirtz Hashem, as we say. So thank you, Josh. Let's sing together. Ya'alo Sadai.
Ya'alo Sadai V'chol asher bo Ya'alo Sadai. Ay, 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 Ya'alo Sadai V'chol asher bo Ya'alo Sadai. Ay, 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 Az Yirananu Kol Hatzei Ya'ar, Az Yirananu Kol Hatzei Ya'ar, Az Yirananu Kol Hatzei Ya'ar, Az Yirananu Kol Hatzei Ya'ar. Ya'alo Sadai V'chol asher bo Ya'alo. Yeah, put your yachts together. Come on now. Ay, 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 Ya'alo Sadai V'chol asher bo Ya'alo Sadai. Ay, 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 Az Yirananu Kol Hatzei Ya'ar, Az Yirananu Kol Hatzei Ya'ar, Az Yirananu Kol Hatzei Ya'ar, Az Yirananu Kol Hatzei Ya'ar. Ya'alo Sadai V'chol asher bo Ya'alo Sadai. Ay, 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 Ya'alo Sadai V'chol asher bo Ya'alo Sadai. Ay, 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 ay.
Thank you so much, Josh.
You.
Welcome to those who've just joined us. So nice to see you. So nice to be together. So we're going to sing about untying those knots. Ana bechoach tatir tserura. Please loosen those knots. Help us open. Help us to be open to receive what we need. When we're open to receiving, when we are less constricted, we are also so much more able to give. And this world is asking a lot of us right now. We need to give a lot of ourselves. So to strengthen our souls, we really pray this reminder to ourselves that the knots that bind us and that constrict us be untied. So let's really play with that and kind of maybe move our heads around, just feel a little looser in our bodies. Yes, I've still been doing yoga and maybe I'm a little too influenced by it. I hope you don't mind. So untie those knots. Think about what are those other kinds of knots that maybe aren't in your muscles but are in your heart in some way. Maybe some emotional constriction. Let's really just breathe into that. We're going to sing these words on the screen. If you're not familiar yet with this melody or these words, just join in any way that you can. Ana bechoach bechoach gedulat yemincha yemincha tatir tzerura kaber natamcha sagveinu torenu nora Ana bechoach bechoach gedulat yemincha yemincha tatir tzerura kabel rinatamcha sagveinu torenu nora yai lai 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 yai lai 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 yai lai 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 yai lai 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 yai lai 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 lai. Well, we are about to go into Lecha Dodi, and I hadn't even announced it, and Coco went to get her squeaky toy. So we are going to make sure that she does not accompany us for this one. Sometimes she's a little offbeat, but it is amazing. She is an amazing dog. She knows what the order of the service. So we are going to turn to Lecha Dodi. We are going to welcome that beloved friend, that beloved partner, that beloved space, that neshama yitera, that extra bit of soul that we need to acknowledge that maybe sometimes is closed off from us. And we're going to sing Lecha Dodi to the melody of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. We'll be on pages 20 and 21. Excuse me one second. And we'll be singing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. When we get to verse 9, we'll rise and face the door, rise in body or in spirit as you're comfortable. Into the space, or we've let our dod, our beloved, into the space in which we allow ourselves to more deeply experience awe and wonder. So we're going to move into singing the Magadlu round. Some of us can sing Hallelujah. Some of us could sing words that are found at the top of page 342 in the prayer book. They come from Psalm 92, and it's really fascinating that Psalm 92 is the psalm that is identified with Shabbat. The first line is Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat, and it's identified in the Mishnah, in the ancient text, as the psalm that the Levites, the ancient priests, sang, that the musicians in ancient times sang at the temple on Shabbat. And we think of Kabbalat Shabbat as a sort of an invention, a product of the Middle Ages during the time of Kabbalah, of Jewish mysticism. And long before the mystics of the Middle Ages composed the Kabbalat Shabbat service, this psalm was a very important part of the service. And I think it has something to do with the sense of awe and wonder that is expressed in just this way, this beautiful line. Ma gadlu ma'asecha ya me'od amku machshavotecha. And I do invite you to maybe think of something that gave you a sense of awe or wonder this week. Type it into the chat if you'd like, if you have that accessible to you, or share it with someone if you're with someone in your house. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. So hopefully each of us was able to think of something that gave us that sense, but I want to highlight one thing from Zita, that Zita's grandson Leo became bar mitzvah last Shabbat, Mazal Tov, and your grandson Noah's 30th birthday on Wednesday. Wow, Mazel Tov, what a blessing to have grandchildren with that span of ages so that you can have so many different kinds of nachas all in one. That is beautiful. And feel free to share at any point during the service. Anyone out there who has a simcha, a joyous occasion, or a moment of awe or wonder that you experienced, we welcome them throughout the service, not just when we sing this psalm. And it's a really wonderful way for us to connect to each other. So, going to move into the Ma'ariv service using our little punctuation mark, in this case the Chatzi Kaddish, that brings us out of Kabbalat Shabbat and into the evening service. We're on page 26. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah Be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'v'yizman kori v'yimeru Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach Le'alam u'l'almei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shmei kudesha berichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chatza v'nechemata ta'amiran bi'alma v'yimeru Amen. We rise with our bodies if we're able to do that, or we rise in spirit for Baruch Hu on page 28. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. On page 30, at the bottom. Uma'avir yom u'mevi layla umavdil ben yom u'vein layla Adonai tzvaot shemo el chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed Baruch ata Adonai Hamariv Aravim Blessed are you Adonai who brings on evening. Rabbi Schaefer is going to lead us.
Please join me on page 34 as we recite the Shema together. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. We turn to page 36 for V'ahavta. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta ba'am v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'aderech ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם emet. We turn to page 40 for Micha Mocha. And the image of God parting the seas for us this week really reminded me of the people in my life who have opened doors for me. I think we've all been lucky enough at times in our life to have special mentors, family, friends who have opened doors for us and made our success possible. And so I invite everybody to just think of one person who has done that for you in your life, who has opened doors and made your success possible, and hold them in your hearts as we sing together the song of freedom, the song of redemption on page 40.
Elohim Adonai, Mi kamocha nehedar v'kodesh, Nora tehilot osef lele, Nora tehilot osef lele. Yadadai, 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 לפני משה ומרים. אנו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. We'll sing our little lullaby of a blessing on page 42, Hashkivenu, reminding ourselves that even if we don't feel it all the time, on a deep level, everything is going to be all right. And then we'll pray that God spread over us a Sukkot Shalom, canopy of peace. We're on page 42. Next line down, third line from the top on page 42. Shalom sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. Blessed are you, God, who spreads over us a canopy of peace, and over your people Israel, and over Yerushalayim, and who gives us the sense of strength, security, and inner peace, allows us to cultivate all of that so that we may bring peace to this world, to all who need it. V'nomar, and let us say,
Amen.
So we are going to move into the Amidah now. Just want to share with you, as I did last week, a beautiful introduction by Rabbi Art Green. He said that it's while saying the Amidah that our heart opens and our most private longings co-mingle with the ancient words to create thoroughly Jewish and yet thoroughly personal prayer. So whether or not you're following along in the book this evening, if you have in your mind or your heart some piece of Jewish prayer, particularly of this Amidah prayer, that you want to put in conversation with your deepest longings this evening, I invite you to do that. We're going to do the Amidah silently, but we're going to open it up on page 46 with this prelude, this Adonai Sfatai. We pray that our mouths and ultimately that our hearts be opened so that we may be able to truly connect to the source of all life. And that will be on page 46, and I invite you to rise in body or spirit as you're able. After we sing Adonai Sfatai, Josh is going to play an instrumental backdrop for us for our own private prayers. So feel free to have that move you or to take some silence, and then we'll come back together with our prayer for peace on page 60. Adonai Sfatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Thank you, Josh, for that beautiful musical canvas on which we could paint our prayers. Feel free to continue your private prayers if that's the space you're in right now. We're going to pray for peace with Shalom Rav, which is on page 60 in the book. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon, לכל השלום. כי אתה הוא מלך אדון, לכל השלום. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. B'tov b'necha Yivarech et Amcha Yisrael. בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. I want to thank my husband, Rabbi Jethro Berkman, for playing and singing so beautifully. And thank Josh also. It's really nice to have so many talented guitarists. And I'm not going to thank Coco for squeaking along with her toy. She needs a little work. And I was muted. Okay. So did you hear me thank everybody? I was thanking Josh and thanking Jethro Berkman for playing along with our service tonight. It is so much appreciated. So I wanted to just root us in where we are in Torah this week. And, you know, when I was growing up, I thought that rabbis had to start every sermon with some kind of a joke. And that's probably true. And I don't usually start with a joke, but tonight I'm going to do that very thing. So this is one of my favorite Jewish jokes. Abe is traveling on a bus to Coney Island, and he's about to fall into a sweet, beautiful nap. But suddenly he's jolted awake by the sound of an old bubby saying from the back of the bus, "Oi, am I thirsty? Oi, am I thirsty?" She's repeating it over and over every few minutes. "Oi, am I thirsty? Oi, am I thirsty?" So finally, Abe gets up and he brings the woman a bottle of water and he goes back to his seat to relax. And the bus is quiet again and he's just about to drift off. All of a sudden he hears from the back of the bus, "Oi, was I thirsty? Oi, was I thirsty?" So what happens when our needs are met, when we're finally satisfied? Well, this joke characterizes Jews as those who have to keep complaining. even in the past tense. I must admit, I'm guilty of this myself. Or maybe it's that we recognize how wonderful it is that our needs were met. In this week's parsha, I think really has something profound to say about the danger, actually, of having our needs met, of being totally satisfied, of having our thirst quenched. In this week's parasha, Moses continues his recounting to the people as he is soon to die and they are soon to enter the promised land. And he's really reminding them of everything they've been through, the good, the bad, and the ugly, on their way to the cusp of the promised land, and recounting what they must do in order to survive and to thrive in their new land and their new life that will soon be theirs. The first line of the Torah portion reads, "And if you do obey these rules and observe them carefully, the Lord your God will maintain faithfully for you the covenant that God made on oath with your ancestors." So typically it is translated just that way. If you obey these rules, or maybe if you do obey these rules, then good things will come. But actually that translation glosses over a seemingly extraneous word. And we know there's no extraneous words in Torah, right? The ancient rabbis said that, of course, there's nothing superfluous in Torah, not even one little word. So we need to make sense of it. So Rashi, the medieval commentator, makes sense of this seemingly extraneous word. The word is akev. Akev is actually the name of the Torah portion because the name of the Torah portion comes from one of the first words in the Torah portion. And what the first verse really says is, if you akev obey these rules. Akev means heel, or it's related to the word for heel. And the Hebrew name Yaakov, an important figure in Judaism, Jacob, comes from the word heel because Jacob was holding on to the heel of his twin Esau when they were being born. So akev is a small word, but actually Rashi, in the style of Torah commentators, takes it and says it must mean something. And Rashi says that what it really means is, even if the commandments that you might typically walk upon with your heels, like you're going to walk on them, they don't seem to matter that much, you should listen even to those, maybe especially to those, to the commandments that you might otherwise overlook. The things that you'd be most likely to ignore or to metaphorically walk over, those commandments too must be obeyed. But I wonder if there's another vitally important teaching here about the danger of ignoring or forgetting the blessings in our lives, the daily miracles that we often take for granted. One of the many points that Moses keeps repeating in this parasha is that the people were stiff-necked and had uncircumcised hearts. They had a foreskin around their hearts. I think it's kind of easier, perhaps more palatable, to think of it as a wall, as a heart that is closed off. But this is biblical imagery that's used again and again. People are told to circumcise their hearts, to open their hearts, to loosen what is constricting their hearts. And the Israelites in their various misbehaviors and rebellions throughout the wilderness have been stiff-necked, and we talked about the knots in our necks, and we pray to loosen them up. They've been stiff-necked, kshe oref, which probably means rebellious or stubborn, and they have had some kind of constriction, a wall around their hearts. The descriptions are used after the incident of the golden calf and at other times. So Moses here is saying, don't be like that. Don't forget that when you are the recipient of blessing, don't forget that you are the recipient of blessing. You are always the recipient of blessing, especially when you're satisfied. Now think about it. When are we most aware that our lives are a blessing? When are we least likely to take things for granted? That's when the things we need and we want and love are threatened or are lost, right? That's when we're most likely to realize that what we have is a blessing. And when are we the most likely to take things for granted? When we don't feel that we're threatened And when we're living our lives as if everything is here to stay, as if our lives are not vulnerable and fleeting, and we feel satisfied. When do the Jewish people say grace traditionally? Not before, but after a meal. The origin of the practice of Birkat Hamazon, the blessing for food, is in the Talmud, in Brachot, and it comes from this week's Parsha, a verse that reads, Va'achalta v'savata uverachta. You should eat and be satisfied and bless. Eat, be satisfied, and bless. Blessing has to come when you are satisfied, when you are the most likely not to feel like blessing, because you got your water. You were thirsty, you got your water. You're so relieved. Maybe the woman, the subject in the joke really gets it and she knows, oh, I should be so grateful after the fact. But so we don't say a grace before meals, as in other traditions. Our grace comes after the meal. We say a bracha, we say traditionally a blessing before we eat. But we should, when we're satisfied, say, wow, we are so lucky. We are so thankful. So the full Torah text reads, when you've eaten your fill, give
I think that's the secret of any good Devar, is just when the real secret's going to be revealed to you, we freeze and we hold it back. I don't know what mystery Rabbi Berkman was planning to unveil for us this evening, but hopefully her Zoom is able to return and she can share it with us tonight.
I'm back.
She's back. The magic worked. Mazel tov, everyone.
I am so sorry. I guess my internet just went out without warning, or Zoom did not like my Devar Torah.
It was
Or
too
one of
good
you
for
didn't like
Zoom.
my Devar
Zoom
Torah.
couldn't handle the knowledge you gave us.
Yeah,
Rabbi.
right. Zoom couldn't handle the knowledge. That's right. Well, aren't I lucky that I had Josh here and Rabbi Schaefer here as backup? Anyway, as I was saying, exactly when you're in this place that where all your needs are going to be met, then you have to not forget.
Oh, no,
So
Rabbi
I think
Don't
we'll have to get a written copy of that Devar out to us. But I think, Josh, maybe we can move on and do a prayer for healing. And if Rabbi Berkman's able to join us with a good connection at the end, she can come back and share with us. So if you have a prayer book with you and you're able to turn to page 253, we will look to our prayer for healing. And if you would like to say Misha Berach for somebody and would like to chat, share their name in the chat with us, please do. We will heal the internet. That's a wonderful suggestion. As a community tonight, we are praying for Miriam Bat Yehoshua, Yosefa, and Valerie Rose, and Ken Sachs. If you have any names you'd like to share with us, please add them to our chat. We pray for Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Isabel Wiggin, and all the COVID victims. Josh, you'll lead us in the prayer for healing on page 253.
Of course.
Judy Mabel.
Mishebeirach Avotenu Mikor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishebeirach imotenu mikor abracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. And let us say Amen.
May all those in need of healing have a refuah shlema. Thank you, Josh, for singing that so beautifully. I believe my Zoom or internet also needs a refuah shlema, full healing. I am so sorry about crashing out on you, and I hope it won't happen again. So I'll just, at this point, just wrap up these words of Torah by saying that I think that awareness that throughout Torah we have this theology that doesn't sit well with us, that if you do these things and you obey these commandments, all will be well with you. We know that's not how the world works. But perhaps what it means is that you will receive blessing if you are aware of blessing, if you actually, if you cut away, as the verse says in this Torah portion, the thickening about our hearts and stiffen our necks no more. We're more likely to be stiff-necked and closed-hearted when we are satisfied, when we're sated. And when we have what we need, there's a kind of forgetfulness that's just a part of human nature. So I'll leave you with this, that Rabbi Shefa Gold interprets the word stiff-necked to mean that the layers of defense built up around my heart will actually prevent me from tasting and receiving the subtleties and richness of this world. With my senses, I receive the color and fragrance, taste and texture of creation, but then the foreskin of the uncircumcised heart will prevent me from benefiting from those riches. It will deflect the fullness of pleasure, beauty, and nourishment that my soul requires. Feeling deprived, I will always want more. The uncircumcised heart keeps me forever hungry, forever unsatisfied. So paradoxically, when our heart is closed off to the awareness of blessing, even the little miracles, the things we might walk on with our heel, akev, as Rashi says, when we're closed off, we actually don't receive the blessing in the way that we're meant to. So now, on the cusp of the promised land, when a dream and promise made generations ago is about to be fulfilled, there are two things that have to happen. The people must remember where they've come from when they did not have the blessings that they are soon to enjoy in abundance, And they must have open hearts to receive the continual flow of awareness of blessings. And then there's a third thing. They must use that remembering. They must use that
Let's turn to page 282 in our prayer books for Elenu. If you're able to rise, or body or spirit, please join me in the first paragraph, Elenu, and in the closing verses. Alenu l'shabeach ladon hakol latet gedula liotzer bereshit shehu notei shamayim v'yosed haaretz umoshav yikaro b'shamayim mima'al u'shchinatu zo b'gopei meromim u'Eloheinu einod v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Page 287. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz vayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo Ushemo Echad. Please be seated. And as we turn to Mourner's Kaddish on page 294, I'd like to invite anybody saying Kaddish tonight to share their names of loved ones in the chat. And I know Rabbi Berkman has a name, and I just want to share about a giant that the Jewish people lost last night. Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz was a brilliant, beloved rabbi who wrote across the spectrum of Jewish texts. If you've ever learned with me at a Torah study class and you've seen one of these paragraphs where some of the words are bolded and some of them are unbolded, that is coming from an edition of the Talmud that he and his students compiled and edited first in Hebrew and modern Hebrew, and then in English. And he is responsible for making the Talmud and many Jewish texts accessible to thousands and thousands more people around the world. And so it's with great sadness that we mention his name tonight. And Rabbi Berkman, I know you wanted to share the name.
I wanted to share the name of a wonderfully bright light, a Jewish educator, a chaplain, an amazing woman, Susan Moser, who died after a 3-year battle with cancer. I was lucky to know her. She worked at Temple Israel for some years. She worked at Hebrew Senior Life. I knew her from a variety of contexts. Truly a special person who has left us far too soon. So many people are mourning her tonight. And I want to bring her name into this space and say that I pray that her memory will be a blessing as her life was. So, Mourner's Kaddish, if we wanted, anyone else has any names? I saw Neil Spritz, beloved dad of Nathan, and Jerry Kaysen. So, Mourner's Kaddish is on page 294. ויתקדש בעגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה בריחו. אלא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום רבה משמיים וחיים עלינו כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Please join me tomorrow morning for Torah study at 10:30. We'll continue studying the week's Torah portion, Akev. And our website is now live with plenty of high holiday details. There'll be some exciting classes coming up during the month of Elul, starting in the end of August. And you'll find information continually added to this website with all the details for Slichot, Rosh Hashanah, and Yom Kippur. And we're very excited this year to be able to bring some of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur home to you with High Holy Day care packages. And you can sign up for information and to receive one of those on the website. I apologize for the technical issues tonight, but a big thank you to both Rabbis Berkmans and to Josh for helping us lead tonight. And I will lead us in Kiddush, which can be found on page 5. If you've got some wine or grape juice and you'd like to join me, please do. And we'll say Kiddush and Motzi together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitzanu b'mitzvotav v'ratza banu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahavadu ratzon hinchilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila l'mikrae kodesh zecher l'tziat mitzrayim ki vanu v'acharta v'otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha v'ahavadu v'ratzon hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. Rabbi Berkman will lead us in Motzi.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lecha min haaretz. Amen. The kids appear when the challah appears. And the dog. Well, I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm not sure why my internet went down 3 times. Thank you for bearing with us. Thank you, Rabbi Schaefer and Josh. Josh is going to lead us in a closing song.
Thank you, Rabbi Berkman, Rabbi Schaefer. Always a blast to sing and play together. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam, salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam, salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Od Yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Ve'al kulam. Shabbat shalom.
Gallery.
Shabbat shalom,